And I used to watch Uncle Russ all the time. So I said, well, he's the big children's show host in San Diego, and he calls himself Uncle Russ. I'm going to be Uncle Tommy. And it was an hour every Sunday. Then after that, then we got back into regular programming, which was jazz, middle-of-the-road, stuff like that.
Welcome once again to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. And it's an honor to be speaking with a legend in both Los Angeles and San Diego radio. KRF 101 for over 18 years, and in San Diego radio for many, many years before that. Shotgun Tom Kelly, thanks for coming on.
You better believe it, Josh. I'm glad to be on, man. Glad to be on your facility here.
Oh, thank you. Also, we're going to mention your new book is called All I Want to Do is Play the Hits. We're going to be talking about that as well. But tell us about your life growing up and what events inspired you to get into radio.
Well, I grew up in San Diego, Josh, and, I still have a home there. I do my show in L.A. and Hollywood, and then when I'm up there, and then I come on down, I have a studio here. It's beautiful about being on SiriusXM 60s Gold Channel 73. We're mobile. We can do our show wherever we are. Like Flash Phelps in the morning, he does his show sometimes when he's on the road from a hotel room.
Wow.
It's just amazing. But it's a lot of fun. So to ask you had the question, how did it start? Well, I'll tell you what, my mother was a big radio listener. And I was going to St. John of the Cross Catholic School. By the way, this story is in my book.
Mm-hmm.
All I Want to Do is Play the Hits. It's available on Amazon. And I came home. I was 10 years old. And my mom said, there's a gentleman by the name of Frank Thompson. He's broadcasting in a mobile unit just down the street. And he is putting people on the air. Tommy, why don't you go see if he'll put you on the air? So I did what my mom told me to, and I got on my bike, and I went down to the Kogo Mobile Studios, and there was Frank Thompson in a trailer, 2 turntables, and a microphone, and I was fascinated about what I was seeing. Well, he saw me outside the mobile studio, and he says, this is Frank Thompson on KOGO. We have a very interesting young man standing outside the Kogo Mobile Studio. Come on in here, young man. What's your name? So I stepped in. Well, my name is Tom. What school do you go to? I go to St. John of the Cross Catholic School. And, well, congratulations, Tom. I've given you 4 tickets to go see the L.A. T-Birds at Westgate Park. And so I thought he just handed me $1 million, Josh. I really did. So I went home. My mom heard me on the radio. And then I built my own little radio station in my bedroom. And I started just doing little radio shows with extension speakers. I had speakers connected to my buddy's house across the street, next door. We had patio speakers. I mean, that was the only thing I had going, but it was a lot of fun. I hope that answers that part of the question.
Oh, definitely. And did your high school have its own radio station? Because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Mine did not, but what mine did, now you got to realize when I was getting into high school, I was about 15 or 16, and what my high school did have was they had a morning bulletin. I went to Mount Miguel High School in a suburb of San Diego called Spring Valley. And so anyway, they needed somebody to make the announcements in the morning, and I was looking for a way to get out of first period. So anyway, I was the announcer on the morning bulletin. And Josh, people to this day still come up to me, Shotgun, I remember. No, they don't call me Shotgun. They call me Tom. Tom, I remember when you used to read the morning bulletin, man, every morning. We just always remember that, And then, of course, I got into broadcasting. At 16, I got my first job at KPRI FM. But yeah, no radio studio or anything. Just the morning bulletin in Mount Miguel.
Well, tell us how you got the job at KPRI.
Tell us how I got the job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was hanging around Radio KDEO, an AM station in San Diego. Now, back in those days, it was about 1966. And as you know or remember, there was no FM band when you bought a car, it just had the AM band, and even a brand new car, it was just AM radio. So AM radio was the big thing, and if you wanted FM, that was more of a background thing and a specialty item that you would either add to your car radio, or you wouldn't have it in the car, you just have it in the home, because it was multiplex stereo, Mm-hmm. So anyway, the AM station, Radio KDO, there was a gentleman by the name of George Manning. He was a weekend guy at KDEO, but he was a full-time guy at KPRI. He was the program director. He said, I have a Sunday morning position, and you could have it. Now, nobody wants to work Sunday mornings, but I was a 16-year-old kid, and Josh, I was ready. So that's how I got my first job on the air, is through George Manning, and it was at an FM station.
Yeah, and they said back then the only stations that did FM were classical, religious, and public stations or novelty stations. And I read that you hosted the Uncle Tommy Show, playing children's music on KPRI.
Well, you've done your homework here, Josh. I was going to mention that, but now that you mention it, I'll mention it. So, anyways, during that Sunday morning block, they had different things. They had, first of all, the station played jazz and middle of the road, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, and I remember they had a new group that I was fascinated with on A&M Records, Sergio Mendes and the Brazil 66. So I do remember it was 1966 when I was at that station. Now, so anyway, the first 2 hours was that kind of music. Then at 8 o'clock in the morning, there was a children's block. We play Disney music and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so my mother, being a radio fan, I thought I'd include her in my radio show. And so I started my name is Tom. And by the way, my real name is Tom Irwin, IRWIN. So I was Tom Irwin on KPRI. And so anyway, I said, well, I'll just turn this to the Uncle Tommy Show, because there was a children's show host in San Diego that called himself Uncle Russ. And I used to watch Uncle Russ all the time. So I said, well, he's the big children's show host in San Diego, and he calls himself Uncle Russ. I'm going to be Uncle Tommy. So that's how that happened. And it was an hour every Sunday. And we had a trade out for a birthday cake. We celebrated a little kid's birthday. And I remember there's a friend of mine. His name was Wes Owen. And so he won one of the birthday cakes from George's Wonderful World of Cakes down in Chula Vista. Mm. And they were a sponsor. They paid for the time. And they gave away a cake on the Uncle Tommy Show. Then after that, we got back into regular programming, which was jazz, middle of the road, stuff like that.
Wow. And you played that too as well.
Oh, yeah. And I got to tell you, Josh, I wanted to be on AM. I wanted to be a boss jock. I wanted to be a rock and roll disc jockey. But I was just starting out, and I was trying my best to do that, and I really didn't like the Sinatra, Tony Bennett stuff, Andy Williams, Mm-hmm. But it was there. It was what I had to play. I did like Sergio Mendes in the Brazil 66. That really reached out to me. But the rest of it, I didn't particularly care for it. But I got to tell you, now that I've done rock radio, I've been a boss jock, and I've done rock radio for years. Now I'm going back in to loving the Sinatra stuff, Tony Bennett and all that stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm a member of the Sinatra Society, and when Frank was alive, I've seen Frank 38 times in concert. We would go as the Sinatra Society, and we would go and see the 8 o'clock show on Friday night, and then we'd have a Sinatra workshop the next day on Saturday at noon, and then Frank Sinatra Jr., he directed the orchestra. He would come out and talk to us, but we never got to meet Frank, his dad, never. But then we got our tuxedos on, and then we went to the 8 o'clock show on Saturday night, and then we stayed around for the 10 o'clock show on Saturday night. But one of the things that Frank did to us, he would, be in the middle of the concert, and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, group of people here in the audience that I'd like to absolutely focus on. They're a marvelous group. They're members of the Sinatra Society, and will you please rise? And we'd stand up, and the spotlight would fall on us, and it was just great to have our hero, Frank Sinatra, recognize us. So as I got into my adulthood, I really enjoyed that music, and today I really enjoy jazz and middle-of-the-road music, and, of course, love Sinatra.
It's interesting because the rock and rollers we idolized, it turns out they also enjoy Sinatra and that middle-of-the-road music. I remember a couple of years ago, Paul McCartney was at some society honoring some of the great standards, and McCartney goes, "Yeah, I love Gershwin." I'm like, whoa, Paul McCartney loves Gershwin?
Sure, absolutely.
And I remember Frank Sinatra, the first time I saw him was on MTV. This was the really early days when they played music from, I think, the 50s to now. That lasted a very short time. But I said, hey, I was 9 years old. I said, hey, Dad, who's that old man singing the Beatles song Something? Well, that's Frank Sinatra, Josh. And it was like, wow.
Yeah. Frank is one of the outstanding singers of our time. You go to in the karaoke bars, and you people are singing New York, and as a matter of fact, my son, when he was in the karaoke bars, he picked up the Sinatra catalog, and he liked singing that.
Wow.
Start spreading the news. Yeah. So anyway, what else you got?
Yeah, I was also wondering about who were your favorite radio personalities growing up? Because you wanted to be a boss jock so badly, and you had some great personalities, first on the Lee Bartell KCBQ and then 136 KGB. Who are your favorites during that era?
Again, Josh, you are outstanding, my man. You've been doing your homework. Yes, KCBQ is one of my favorite stations, and the jocks on KCBQ I really enjoyed. For instance, one of my all-time favorites was Seamus Patrick O'Hara. He was the afternoon drive guy. There was Happy Harry Martin. There was Scotty Day in the midday. I found out Scotty Day was the boss, the program director. Then there was Shadow Jackson at night, and I used to hang out at 7th and Ash. This is also in my book. All I want to do is play the hits. And I got a picture of the 7th and Ash studios in my book. And Neil Ross, who helped me write my book, and I would go down there and we'd watch the guys on the air. I took a picture of the inside of that studio at 7th and Ash, the KCBQ studio, when I was 12 years old. They wouldn't allow me to come in there, and it was on the second floor. Now, you could see the studio from the street, but I couldn't really get a good shot. So anyway, I saw Scotty Day, and at that time, I was just a 12-year-old kid. I didn't realize Scotty Day was the boss. So anyway, I said, Mr. Day, I'm Tom Irwin, and I'm doing a project for school, and I'd like to be able to take a photograph of the studio from inside. Is there any way I could do that? And he said, absolutely, son, follow me. Went up, and I had one shot left in my little brownie camera filled with slide film, Ektachrome, I think it was. Anyway, I got back in the corner as far as I could. I took a breath, and I had my Sylvania flash cube on my little brownie camera, and I click, and I've got that picture of Bill Bishop. He was Dollar Bill Bishop on the show, but his real name was Jerry Bishop, and later on he became the voice of Judge Judy's program.
I remember Jerry Bishop, yeah.
Yeah, Jerry used to. Then he worked at KISS early on. I think he did. Mm-hmm. I know he worked at KFI when they were doing the middle of the road thing. But yeah, and of course he was an outstanding voiceover guy.
He was
later on in life. Yeah, yeah. So I've got that picture in my book, and that picture is outstanding quality. I mean, I couldn't believe the quality that. Well, see, I was smart that I used color slide film, because that is, you don't have a negative, you have a positive, and it's great. And so I have that picture blown up, got 16 by something in my pool hall, and it's just beautiful. And now it is in my book. All I want to do, that's WANNA, all I want to do is play the hits. Available in paperback and hard copy from Amazon.
Yeah, you can also check it out at shotguntomkelly.com, your website. And next time, Shotgun Tom talks about who he idolized growing up in San Diego, plus some great stories about the legendary disc jockey born Robert Weston Smith.